Okay, so simulan po natin ulit yung discussion natin. No? Doon na tayo. Ituloy natin yung due process under Section 1 of the Bill of Rights. Sige. So sa procedural due process po, no, kung matatanong tayo dito, syempre, di kita tatanungin ng what are the requisites of due process kapag sa judiciary. Syempre, hindi ganun ang mga tanong. Kasi kung ganun lang tayo tatanungin, sa remedial ang question, di ba? So, kung matatanong po tayo sa procedural due process, ang prediction ko po dyan, kung hindi sa administrative, sa educational institutions, no? So, di ba ito, mayroon tayo yung requisites, no, for procedural due process sa judiciary, di ba? May judicial power dapat, may jurisdiction over the person of the accused, there must be opportunity to be heard, and there must be judgment upon a lawful hearing. So basically, hindi po para sa akin, no, hindi dito lalabas kasi nga topic no, pang civil, no, pang civil procedure na to, no? Kung matatanong po tayo dito sa administrative talaga, no, at saka sa educational institution. Anyway, before we go there, no, before we go sa admin at saka sa educational institutions, itakil natin ibang mga helpful na mga doctrines for procedural due process. So, alam naman natin ang basic. What do you mean when you say right to procedural due process? Di ba the minimum requirements of notice and hearing yan. No? Dapat may notice, dapat may hearing bago magkaroon ng decision, ng resolution, ng judgment. No? However, that twin rights may be dispensed with when there is a conclusive presumption or an urgent need for immediate action. Ano po example ng urgent need for immediate action na yan? Example is nuisance per se. Di ba? Pag nuisance per se, pwede pong summary abatement. No? Wala nang hearing. No? I-abate na talaga agad. No? Example is mad dog on the loose. Di ba? Pornographic materials. Contaminated meat, narcotic drugs, filthy restaurants. Ano pa yung mga ibang examples under the civil code? Yung mga ruinous trees, ruinous buildings. Di ba kasi nuisance sila per se. Di ba? Nuisance per se by itself, it's already a nuisance. Kaya hindi na dapat kailangan pa ng notice and hearing bago natin mapatibag yung building, bago natin mapatibag yung puno. Kasi nga, makakasira ng, well, hindi na siya safe para sa mga naglalakad sa daan, di ba? Para sa mga bystanders, hindi na siya safe. Okay, next. Preventive suspension of a public officer charged with the violation of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. No? Preventive suspension, no? Ibig sabihin, matik yan. Pag na-charge na tayo, no, nag-charge yung ombudsman, usually. No? Pag nag-charge yung ombudsman ng kaso laban doon sa politiko, di ba? Later on, magkakaroon na ng preventive suspension yan. Okay, next, cancellation of passport of a person sought for criminal prosecution. Why? Pag nag-notice and hearing ka pa, nakawala na ng Pilipinas yan. No? Or, isa pang magandang gawin nga dyan, ano tawag dito? Whole Departure Order, HDO. Okay. Next is issuance of an ex parte TRO with a period of 72 hours. No? Kahit na mas mahaba eh. Di ba? Yung mas mahaba na TRO, di ba? Two kinds of TRO. The first one is 72 hours. The second one is 20-day TRO. 20 days na TRO, di ba? Either way po, ex parte in nature yan. Di ba? Why? Kasi kung maghihiring pa, di ba? Kung magkakaroon ng hearing, mawala yung essence ng TRO. Di ba? Kasi kailangan natin mabilisang aksyon, no? Anyway, pwede naman mag-hearing later on. Okay. Ano pa ibang examples, no? Yung pong protection order, temporary protection order under the Violence Against Women and Children Act, no? So, wait, hindi ko na i-point out dito. The temporary protection order under RA 9262 is not violative yan. The issuance, the ex parte issuance of a temporary protection order under RA 9262 is not violative of the due process clause under the Constitution. Just like a writ of preliminary attachment which is issued without notice and hearing. Ayan pala another example, di ba? Writ of preliminary attachment, no? Because the time in which the hearing will will take could be enough to enable the defendant to abscond or dispose his property. In the same way, the victim in violence against women and children may already have suffered harrowing experiences in the hands of her tormentor, and possibly even death, if notice and hearing will still be required before such acts could be prevented. So, tanong natin, no? Attorney, paano kaming tatanungin sa bar exam about these topics? No? Ini-imagine ko paano kayong tatanungin. Napakasimple. No? Sabihin natin, nag-issue ng barangay protection order. No? Nag-file ng kaso, nag-file ng complaint sa barangay. O, siyempre, si Kapitan, kinakabahan para doon sa babae, nag-issue si Kapitan ng BPO. O ngayon, may dalawang pwede itanong sa inyo. First is, this was an invalid exercise of judicial power. That's the first question. Oh. Nag-exercise ba ng judicial power si Kapitan? So, nagkaroon ba ng violation of the doctrine of separation of powers? That's the first question. Second question is, does this violate the procedural or the due process clause under the Constitution? Hindi po lang sabihin sa inyo procedural. Sasabihin sa inyo, does this BPO, no? Violate, no? Does the issuance of the BPO ex parte violate the due process clause under the Constitution? Ang ganda ng dalawang tanong sa inyo. Siyempre, gagawa ng istorya yan, no? Binugbog yung babae ng boyfriend niya o ng asawa niya, pumunta sa barangay. Ganun ang mga dialogue dyan. Nag, nag-apply ng BPO, nag-grant, o mga ganyan ang dialogue. No? So ngayon, yun ang dalawang pwede itanong sa inyo. Diba? Pwedeng two-part question, pwedeng one of the two. So ako talaga, pag nagdi-discuss kasi ako ngayon, i-imagine ko din, no? Para hindi rin tayo masyadong nakaklog yung information. Especially, marami kayong binabasa. Diba? Hindi lang naman political law, you have to prioritize a lot of things. Ang iniisip ko po madalas, no, pag nag-discuss ako sa inyo, ang nilalagay ko po sa reviewer ko, yung mga nafe-feel ko, no, o yung mga nai-imagine ko, na paano kayo matatanong. Okay? Paano kayo matatanong sa topic na to? Paano yung atake na gagawin sa inyo sa bar exam? Like this one. No? Kasi ang ganda ng tanong, no, lagi din nangyayari, madalas po nagkakaroon ng BPO sa Pilipinas, madalas nagkakaroon ng vowsy complaints, di ba? So, applicable po yan, pwede kayong tanongin talaga. Pwede kayong tanongin pag tinanong kayo sa criminal law ng vowsy elements, di ba? Pag ba mahirap, hindi nakapagbayad ng suporta, automatic kulong na. Mga ganyan ang dialogue sa criminal law. Di ba? Pag sa ano naman, iba naman ang approach. Pag vowsy, pwede rin kayong tanongin ng, does this act, does this law, does this statute violate the Equal Protection Clause under the Bill of Rights? Di ba? Kasi daw, bakit babae pinoprotektahan, bakit mga lalaki walang ganyang batas? O, di ba? Which calls for the application of the four requisites of valid classification, di ba? So we need to know if there is a substantial distinction between men and women. O, di ba? Ganyan ang mga dialogue. Baka silang, ang dami na naging sanga-sanga. No? Okay, you get the point. Okay, let's move. Also, there are many instances under our laws in which the absence of one or both of such requirements is not necessarily a denial or deprivation of due process. Example, no, dalawa to. The clamping of illegally parked vehicles, di ba, was necessary because the transgressors were not around at the time of the apprehension. Ano yung mag-notice and hearing pa tayo bago i-clamp? Di ba? It's so impractical, no? Under such circumstance, notice and hearing would be superfluous. So ako naman, ang description ko, impractical. Di ba? And walang common sense. Di ba? Nor should the lack of a trial type hearing prior to the clamping constitute a breach of procedural due process because yung pong transgressors, they have the opportunity, they have the chance to reverse this apprehension through a timely protest. Magprotesta sila sa tamang himpilan, di ba? Kung sino man na nag-clamp sa kanila. Minsan kasi LGU, minsan kung nasa Metro Manila tayo, pwedeng yung national government, di ba? So, you get the point, no? So, ang point of view po dito, mayroon ka namang actually, let's clarify this one. There are many instances under our laws in which prior, yan, notice and hearing is are not required. Oh, di ba? Mali, hindi yun ang magandang panimulang ano dyan, na parang panimulang description dito sa mga examples natin na to. Hindi kailangan ng prior notice and hearing. Pero magkakaroon po ng subsequent hearing, magkakaroon ng subsequent chance, opportunity to reverse kung ano man yung nangyari. I-prove mo na hindi ka naman dapat ikla, mga ganong bagay, no? Okay. Yan. O NATO yung kotse mo, patunayan mong hindi, di ba? So you can file the necessary protest for that. Okay? Next example, no, ito medyo pumunta tayo ng konti sa commercial law. No, ito yung mga ito yung mga kakaibang topics talaga kasi obscure, no, hindi siya usual sa Pilipinas na mga topics, no. Hindi siya usual na mga na-experience ng Pilipino. Okay. Yung close now here later doctrine. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng close now here later doctrine? Essentially po, the BSP, di ba, through the monetary board can immediately take over and close banks, di ba? If etong banks na to, 'di ba, they are suffering from financial constraints, 'di ba? They are having crisis, no, money-wise, no? Or they are engaged in yung malicious banking practices. O, 'di ba? So, 'yan, ganyan ang style, di ba? Ito, by the way, no, nagsasagot po tayo ng commercial law bar Q&A ngayon. Napakadalas na tinatanong niya close now, here later na yan. No, kasi alam naman natin sa banking laws, di ba, aside sa bank secrecy, aside sa AMLA, no, ang tinatanong dyan yung mga sa general banking law. Di ba, yung mga single borrowers limit, mga ganyan. Dose rate transactions, mga ganyan ang tanong. Ito po ang napansin ko na usual na natatanong. Itong close now, here later doctrine na yan. Kasi, again, no, pag nagkaroon ng kasi, bakit na naman ulit, no? Gawa lang natin ang dahilan, no? Let's find a reason bakit siya usual na natatanong. Kasi nga, kailan ba nagkakaroon ng indulto sa bangko, di ba? Pag nalulugi yung bangko, di ba, yan ang problema. O paano ka gagawa ng bar question sa commercial law or any other subject, may problema. Di ba? So kung iisip po ng problema, yung bar examiner, ang possible na isang problema maiisip niyan, nalugi yung bangko. Dahil nalugi yung bangko, syempre di naman nakitatanong kung paano ayaahon sa pagkalugi bangko, di ba? Hindi nyo na expertise yun, di ba? You will be a lawyer, hindi naman kayo magiging bank manager, di ba? So pag tinanong kayo dyan, yung mga doctrines, di ba, applicable sa law. Yan yun, yung close now, here later. Baka kayo sabihin, hindi ba violation ng due process yan? Isinara mo kami, wala mo lang kaming notice in hearing, bigla mo lang ikinlose. Di ba? Nagkatakotan, isinira mo na agad yung bangko. Hmm. Di ba? Ganun ang magiging dialogue sa inyo kung political law. The answer is, ayan, no? There are instances under our laws in which prior notice and hearing are not required. Why? No, ayan. The close now here later doctrine has already been justified as a measure for the protection of the public interest. Why? Swift action is called for on the part of the BSP when it finds that a bank is in dire straits, no? Unless adequate and determined efforts are taken by the government against mismanaged, against distressed banks, public faith in the banking system is certain to deteriorate and so on and so forth. So, eto, yung gusto kong ilagay nyo. So, ang una nyo sasabihin dyan, etong unang two sentences lang na to, kung tatanungin kayo, no? Is this, parang, is the closure made by BSP? Ganyan ang tanong sa inyo. A violation of the due process clause. O yung unang sentences na yun, sabihin nyo, yung close now, here later doctrine justified dyan for public interest. So, swift action is needed on the part of the BSP. Okay. Next, sasabihin ito, due process that not necessarily require a prior hearing. O, di ba? A hearing or an opportunity to be heard may be subsequent to the closure. Di ba parang sa clamping lang? Hindi po tayo magkakaroon ng prior hearing. Siyempre, the hearing does not have to be trial type. Pag kasi sinabi mong hearing, you will just be heard. You can be heard in writing, you can be heard orally. So, pwedeng in writing, di ba? Magprotesta ka, you file your affidavits and so on. That's hearing. Di ba? Sabi po dito sa Rural Bank of Buhi versus Court of Appeals, due process does not necessarily require a prior hearing. A hearing or an opportunity to be heard may be subsequent to the closure. Yan ang kailangan nyo ilagay. So, tatlong sentences ang gusto kong makita na ilagay nyo. Yung, tag dito, justified. Tapos swift action. At saka ito, hindi kailangan para sa due process ang prior hearing. The hearing can be subsequent to the closure. Sana mailagay niya pag ito man ay lumabas sa bar exam. Okay, ayos tayo dyan ha. Next tayo. Move tayo to the next topic. What are the requisites, no? Procedural due process sa administrative hearing. So, una, actually, administrative hearing dito, ang context nito sa ano, yung mga NLRC. NLRC and NLRC, labor arbiter. No? Kasi pag sinabi mo administrative, administrative din yung hearing sa Senate eh. Pero iba po ang due process doon. Hindi po itong right to present, consider the evidence, independent consideration, hindi po 'yan. Kasi iba. In this case, po administrative dito in order to resolve the issue, 'di ba? In order to promulgate a decision, a resolution, a final order. On the other hand, yung administrative hearing sa Senate, iba yun. In aid of legislation. So it's a different ball game. So ito po mag-a-apply to sa mga ganyan. Hearing sa HLURB, ay, HSAC na pala ngayon, no? Hindi na HLURB. Hearing sa NLRC, Labor Arbiter. You get the point. Okay, so, pakibasa na lang to. No? Basta tandaan nyo, in administrative hearings, kung matatanong man kayo dito ng basic question, ito ang sagot lagi. A trial type hearing is not necessary in administrative hearings. Due process is accorded. Due process is accorded to the, sabihin natin, respondent, to the defendant, naman ang sinabi sa facts, di ba? Whether orally or in writing, di ba? So long as he was heard by the tribunal, something like that. Okay? Sige, pakibasa na lang to the rest, no? Okay. Administrative due process cannot be fully equated with due process in its strict judicial sense. For in the former, a formal or trial type hearing is not always necessary and technical rules of procedure are not strictly applied. Ito pala isa kong gustong sabihin sa inyo. No, yung technical rules of procedure, specifically and rules on evidence. So, unang tanong, pwedeng tanongin kayo, no? Baka i-approach kayo sa political law, no? Kinonsider ng labor arbiter yung hearsay evidence na piniresent nung claimant, in this case, nung plaintiff, kasi illegally dismissed employee daw siya. Hearsay yung evidence na nakalagay dun sa exhibits niya. Inadmit ng labor arbiter, ginamit yung hearsay evidence na yun to rule in favor of the employee, the supposedly illegally dismissed employee. Question, no? Pwedeng tanong kayo, was the due process clause violated? No. Because technical rules of procedure, specifically technical rules on evidence, do not apply in administrative hearings. So, administrative due process will still be duly accorded to the defendant, to the respondent, despite the admission of a hearsay evidence. No? Kasi, the defendant, the respondent, kung ano man ang tawag sa facts, no? He still had an opportunity to be heard. Okay? Sige. You get the point here, no? So, ito case law to, no? Mr. A filed a disciplinary case against Judge B for nullifying A's marriage without his knowledge. So, alam naman nating weird yun, di ba? Medyo grave abuse of discretion yan. Paano ka naman mag-nullify ng marriage ng isang tao na hindi niya nalalaman? Di ba? So baka ang kausap lang natin yung former spouse, yung isang spouse. Etong spouse na to, hindi natin kinausap, hindi natin notify bago natin inanal o ninalify marriage nila. Di ba? Merong mali dyan, di ba? So ano nangyari sa kaso na to? Judge B died while the disciplinary case was pending. No? So pending pa po, no? Basically, disbarment case to. Ano pa nga tawag dyan? Pending pa yung disbarment case, namatay si Judge B. The Office of the Court Administrator recommended that the case be dismissed because continuing this disciplinary case, would violate due process. Is the Office of the Court Administrator correct? The answer is yes. Okay? The opportunity to be heard can only be exercised by those who have resigned or retired, since they are still alive. Dead respondents have no other recourse. They will never know how the proceedings will continue, let alone submit responsive pleading. So in that sense, it must be dismissed. Otherwise, the due process clause of the deceased, the due process clause, the right to due process of the deceased would be violated kasi he will not have an opportunity to refute. He will not have an opportunity to present his own evidence in support of his allegations. Diba? To continue with the proceedings is a violation of the right to due process, specifically procedural due process. Okay, move tayo to educational institution. So mas maiksi po, no? Tandaan nyo, 5 requisites. Pag educational institution, the student must be informed in writing. Okay, the nature and cause of accusation against him. Next, the student has the right to counsel. Ay, right to answer the charges against him with the assistance of counsel. Tama. With the assistance of counsel. Next is they shall be informed of the evidence against them. They shall have the right to adduce evidence in their own behalf. And lastly, the evidence must be duly considered by the investigating committee. Meron akong hindi nailagay dito. Note. Dapat dito. Yes. Ito kalagay. A trial type hearing is not necessary din. Diba? Tandaan niyo po yan, no? Sa administrative hearing, hindi kailangan ng trial type. Same thing po sa educational institution. Hindi po kailangan ng trial type hearing, no? Pwedeng magpadala lang ng ano, no? Ipadala ng ano yung well, yung evidence niya, ipadala ng student tapos magkakaroon na ng findings yung educational institution basically, no? Yung parang board, no? Yung board nila para o yung committee nila hearing this dispute to sa hearing discharge against the student, no? Hindi kailangan na mayroong oral hearing pa to discuss whether the student should be expelled or not. Hindi kailangan. Okay? Okay, next tayo. Preliminary investigation. Ito talaga hiniwalay ko. No, hindi ko siya inilagay lang doon sa administrative proceedings kasi nga yung preliminary investigation madalas sa tatanong sa bar. Why? Kasi laging nangyayari. No? Halos lahat naman ng krimen sa Pilipinas nagkakaroon ng PI. Kasi why? No? Practicality na lang tayo. Kung mababa lang naman po ang penalty, di ba? Hindi naman lahat pinoporso yung kaso. Di ba? Nagkakaroon na ng disinterest, pero pag matitindi yung kaso, murder, kidnapping, homicide, di ba? Talagang nagpo-proceed yung kaso kasi nga matindi yung crime eh. Paano pag murder, homicide, kidnapping yung kaso? May preliminary investigation as a general rule, di ba? Unless na nag-ano sila, nagkaroon ng warrantless arrest. Kasi pag nag-warrantless arrest, tawag dito, hindi na siya preliminary investigation. Ang gagawin na is di ba, pag na hot pursuit arrest, na in flagrante delicto arrest, di ba, valid warrantless arrest, di ba, mangyayari na dyan, i-inquest na lang na proceedings. Pero di ba, pag halimbawa may kaso, rape, ganyan, homicide, preliminary investigation talaga. Kaya ginawa ko siya ng sariling topic, na sariling discussion kasi important talaga siya. Tandaan nyo, sa preliminary investigation, there is no law or rule requiring the hindi investigation, investigating prosecutor to furnish the respondents with the copies of the counter affidavits or correspondence. Kung binabasa po natin ng mabuti yung rules of court specifically sa criminal procedure, no? Saan to? Sa Rule 112. Kung binasa nyo dyan, yung step-by-step procedure, di ba, paano kinokonduct ang preliminary investigation, makikita nyo na hindi kailangan mag-serve, ibigay, mag-furnish ng copy ng counter affidavit sa kapwa mo, respondent. Basically, correspondent to, sabihin natin, 2 tao, sila daw nag-plunder. PI, di ba? Sa PI na yun, yung pong counter affidavit ni respondent A, hindi pa naman accused wala pa namang kaso, wala pa namang information, di ba? Ni respondent A, yung counter affidavit niya na ipa-file niya kanino? Sa complainant, di ba? O sabihin natin, wag na palang plunder, sabihin natin rape na lang. 'Di ba? Dalawa silang conspirators na do sa crime of rape, no? Yung counter affidavit, sino ang pa-furnish mo ng copy? Kasi syempre may affidavit yung ano, 'di ba? May complaint affidavit yung complainant. O, yung respondent, counter affidavit ang kanyang ipe-present with this evidence, no? Pag nagbigay po ng counter affidavit yan, i-furnish yung copy dun sa complainant. Di ba? Wala pong sinasabi, Rule 112. Ayan ha, tandaan nyo, balikan nyo ulit. Walang sinasabi Rule 112 na kailangan i-furnish yung correspondent. Di ba? Wala, ano, kailangan lang. Kaya nga counter eh. Ba't mo bibigyan yung correspondent mo? Hindi mo naman kina-counter yung correspondent mo, di ba? So, ayan, baka sabihin, hindi mo ako finurnish nung counter affidavit nung correspondent ko, kaya na-violate yung procedural due process ko. Ganon kayo pwedeng tanongin dyan. Question, tama ba yung reasoning nung respondent B? Pag ganon, di ba si respondent A yung nag-counter affidavit eh, hindi nakatanggap si respondent B. Was his right to due process violated? The answer is no. Okay, sige. The rights of a respondent in a preliminary investigation are limited to those granted by procedural law, specifically 112. No? Okay. So, ayan. Anyway, basahin nyo na lang to. Ayos to. Further, a preliminary investigation is not a quasi-judicial proceeding since the prosecutor in a preliminary investigation does not determine the guilt or innocence of the accused. Diba? Probable cause lang mga kapatid, no? Kaya hindi natin pwede sabihin quasi-judicial in nature yung kaso. Ngayon, kung i-correlate natin sa remedial law, o di ba paano pag hindi tayo sang-ayon sa, ay di, ganito na lang, oh. Review na lang tayo ulit. Di ba? Kasi syempre ako din nag-remedial law sa inyo. O investigating prosecutor, may probable cause po, magpapile tayo ng kaso. Yung ba investigating prosecutor ang ang may final say? The answer is no. Ang may final say dyan, di ba, city prosecutor? O, di ba, naalala nyo? City prosecutor ang may final say dyan. Recommendatory lang po ang function ng investigating pag preliminary investigation. Kailangan may pirma ni city prosecutor bago mag-file ng kaso sa korte. Kung walang pirma, may ano tayo dyan, may problema dyan. Pwedeng mag-file ng motion to quash, di ba? Lack of authority of the officer filing the information. Diba? Lack of authority of the officer filing the information. Wala siyang authority kasi si city prosec dapat ang pipirma. Diba? Okay. So sana naiintindihan niya pa. O paano pag hindi tayo sang-ayon sa pinirmahan ni city prosec, diba? Magpipetition for review tayo. And so on and so forth. Ngayon, balikan nyo na lang yung discussion ko sa criminal procedure kasi may ano yan, di ba? Pwedeng yung petition for review mo, ipapile mo sa DOJ, meron din naman ipapile mo sa regional state prosecutor. Alamin nyo na lang kung paano, di ba? Tatanong sa bar yun kasi nakalagay specifically sa bar syllabus nyo. Balikan nyo na lang yung discussion natin sa criminal procedure regarding that. Diba? Maraming tanong dito sa preliminary investigation kasi alam nyo kung bakit. Siyempre, kung kayo yung lawyer for the respondent, later on lawyer for the accused, siyempre gusto nyo, maresolba na yung kaso, wala pang kaso sa court. Diba? Kasi pag may kaso na sa court, mahirap yan kasi meron na tayong exposure sa warrant of arrest. Diba? So yan, kaya po talagang very contentious, talagang maraming natatanong sa bar about preliminary investigation kasi talagang tinututukan yan. Okay, extradition, pakibasa na to, deportation. Okay, let's move to equal protection of law. Ayan, kasi gusto ko na talaga makapunta rito. Ito favorite topic ko sa ano eh. Yeah, this is my favorite topic sa Bill of Rights, equal protection of laws. No? Kasi alam nyo kung bakit. Ito talaga dito nyo ma-feel yung politika. Okay, kasi why? Nagkakatalo po talaga lagi sa substantial distinction, no? Depende talaga. Yung substantial distinction po kasi talaga na yan, ano siya, depende siya sa panahon. Okay. Yun, depende yung substantial distinction, nagkakaroon po ng substantial distinction depende sa galaw ng tao. Okay? Baka way back when, walang substantial distinction, ngayon meron na. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, sige, let's move no to equal protection of law. So, when is equal protection clause violated? Dalawang paraan po. When the law makes a classification when there should have been none. And when the law does not make a classification when there should have been one. Tagalogin natin. Kasi alam nyo, ang understanding natin sa equal protection clause, alam na alam ko, no, karamihan sa atin, ang way po natin ng pag-aaral ng equal protection clause, automatic pupunta tayo agad sa four requisites for a valid classification ng substantial distinction, germane, not limited to existing conditions, equally apply to all members of the same class. Diyan tayo agad na pupunta mga kapatid. No? Mali po yan. No? Kasi i-apply nyo lang itong four requisites kung nagkaroon ng classification in the first place. Paano kung walang classification? Pwede pa rin bang ma-violate yung equal protection clause? The answer is yes. Okay, tingnan natin ha. Tagalogin natin. Ang unang way para ma-violate equal protection clause is gumawa ng classification yung law, pero dapat wala. Diyan natin gagamitin yung four requisites. Kasi dito po natin malalaman kung valid ba o reasonable ba classification. Diba? Kinlassify natin yung group 1 at saka group A, pero dapat hindi kasi isang grupo lang naman sila. Violation. Okay? Unconstitutional yung order, yung law. Okay, you get the point. Next way, when the law does not make a classification when there should have been one. Ibig sabihin, hindi natin kinlassify yung dalawang grupo kahit na dapat kinlassify natin sila dahil magkaiba sila. Okay. When the law does not make a classification, hindi po dinistinguish, hindi po ginawa ng different treatment ng law. Yung dalawang different grupo. Dalawang different grupo. Yung dalawang different ng grupo. Okay? Dapat ginawan siya. Okay, gawa natin na example na bago tayo mag-dive dito sa mga requisites na to. So when the law makes a classification when there should have been one. Ang example po nito, sabihin natin sa CR. Okay? Okay. Okay, no, basic examples muna po tayo bago tayo mag-dive sa example sa cases kasi gusto ko sana ma-explain sa inyo ng mas simple siya. Okay, di ba dalawa to? When the law makes a classification when there should have been none at saka when the law does not make a classification when there should have been one. Pwede ko kayong gawa ng apat na examples. What do I mean by that? Dalawang examples for the first one, dito, number one. Dalawang examples for the second one. Gusto kong ipakita sa inyo paano siya nagkakaroon ng violation at paano siya nagkakaroon ng compliance, consistency with the equal protection clause. Okay, sige. Uh, I will make them as similar, as related as possible para makita nyo talaga yung interplay. Okay, sige, papanindigan ko talaga yung example ko, no? Iniisip ko talaga. Papanindigan ko yung example ko about sa CR. Nakaisip na ako ng apat na examples, no? Pero bago natin simulan yun, meron akong nakalimutang ilagay dito. So, letter B, di ba? When is equal protection clause. Yan. Not violated. Para mabuo natin yung yung puzzle. Okay? So, copy paste lang, no? When the law makes a classification, when there should have been one. O, di ba? Tongue twister yung mga ano natin. Yung mga sagot natin, mga instances natin dito. And number two is, when the law does not make a classification, and there should have been none. Okay? When there should have been none. Okay? So, ayan na, tatagalogin natin. Dalawang paraan, paano ma-violate ang clause? Dalawang paraan, paano siya hindi ma-violate din? Okay, so, paano siya ma-violate? Gumawa tayo ng classification ng pagkakaiba, pero dapat wala. Next, na paraan, paano siya ma-violate? Hindi tayo gumawa ng classification, hindi tayo gumawa ng differentiation, pero dapat merong classification tayong ginawa. Meron tayo dapat differentiation na ginawa. Next examples, Next scenarios. When is equal protection clause not violated, no? Ibang-iba, no? Sorry napansin ko lang kasi nakikinig din ako ng lectures dati, di ba? Hindi natin nahimay ng ganito. Okay. When is equal protection clause not violated? When the law makes a classification and there should have been one. Ibig sabihin in Tagalog, gumawa po ng differentiation yung law, gumawa ng distinction yung law, at dapat meron talagang distinction. Di ba? Okay. Lastly, when the law does not make a classification at dapat wala namang classification in the first place. So sa dalawa po na to, consistent yung law sa Bill of Rights. Compliance, in compliance sa Bill of Rights. Okay. Okay. Sagutin na natin, nagawa natin ng examples. When the law makes a classification when there should have been none. Ayan. When is equal protection clause violated? Ito example ko dito. Sabihin natin, gumawa ng ordinansa ang LGU. Sabi dyan, dapat yung mga lalaking Pilipino, iba ang CR sa mga lalaking foreigner. Ganyan. Dapat, each race, iba ang CR. Di ba? Tanong, was equal protection clause violated? The answer is yes. Because the ordinance made a classification between Filipinos and foreigners. Pero there should have been none. Ano pagkakaiba? Di ba? Pareho lang naman tayo gumagamit ng CR, pareho lang tayo gumagamit ng urinal. Di ba? So, dapat wala pong naging classification in the first place. First place, nabulol na ako. So, na-violate ng ordinance na yun yung Equal Protection Clause. Next example, when the law does not make a classification when there should have been one. Example, ordinance ulit. Sabi ng ordinance, dapat sa lahat ng mall, sa lugar natin, unisex ang CR. Hindi pwedeng may men, women, PWD, hindi pwede. Dapat isa lang ang CR para sa lahat. Tanong, is that ordinance unconstitutional? The answer is yes. It violated the Equal Protection Clause. Why? Kasi hindi po siya gumawa ng classification. Hindi kinlassify nung ordinance, nung local ordinance, yung babae, lalaki, PWD, buntes. Di ba? And there should have been one. Dapat kinlassify po mismo ng ordinance na yon ang pagkakaiba ng men, women, at saka PWD. Diba? Hindi niya ginawa kasi sabi unisex eh. Oh. There should have been one na violate yung Equal Protection Clause. Okay, let's move to the next two scenarios. When is Equal Protection Clause not violated? When the law makes a classification and there should have been one. Yun yung sinasabi ko sa ordinance. Sabihin natin, gumawa ng ordinance. Ini-impose po ng LGU nato na dapat lahat ng mall mayroong CR para sa babae, lalaki at PWD. Yan, in compliance yan sa Equal Protection Clause. Kasi nagkaroon po ng classification between genders. At saka yung PWD kasi mas kailangan nila ng malaking space, di ba? And there should have been one. O, di ba? Walang violation. Basically, maayos yung ordinance talaga. Last scenario. When the law does not make a classification when there should have been none. Eh di yun. Di ba? Kailangan may CR kayo sa babae. Okay, hindi natin dinistinguish yung babae na Pinoy at saka yung babae na foreigner. Di ba? Basically, finlip lang natin yung earlier nating examples. In this case, sinabi lang, kailangan may CR ka sa babae, lalaki, PWD. Hindi natin classify yung edad ng babae. Actually, well, wag na tayo sa edad pala. Yung race ng babae, di natin classify, di ba? Complexion ng babae, complexion ng lalaki, we did not classify them, we did not distinguish them at all. So, wala pong violation. Okay? So, sana po nakikita nyo, di ba, yung, parang basically, finiflip lang natin yung examples. No? Kasi ganun din naman yung scenarios, di ba, finlip lang din natin. So, parang makita nyo rin, no? Makita nyo rin na hindi po kasi ganun kasimple na i-apply nyo lang lagi yung valid requisites for reasonable classification, makasagot yun ni Equal Protection Clause. Not all the time. Kasi tingnan nyo to nakalagay dito sa number 2, second scenario natin. How is Equal Protection Clause violated? When the law does not make a classification when there should have been one. Paano nyo gagamitin yung valid requisites for reasonable classification? Diyan, wala nga classification in the first place. You get what I'm trying to say? So, di ba, in that sense, parang inapplicable itong apat na to. Itong mga substantial distinction, germane, existing conditions, inapplicable siya. Because the law did not make a classification in the first place. So, why are you applying this? Di ba? So, pag tinanong kayo ng Equal Protection Clause, ang gusto kong isipin nyo, bago kayo pumunta dyan sa 4 requisites na yan, paano ba ang nangyari sa law na to? Nagkaroon ba ng differentiation? O walang differentiation? Yun ang problema natin kasi walang differentiation. Dapat din-differentiate sila. Okay? Pag nakita nyo na nagkaroon talaga ng classification, pinag-iba ang CR ng foreigner at saka ng Pinoy na lalaki, nagkaroon ng classification, at saka nyo po ipasok yung 4 requisites na to. Now it applies. Is there a substantial distinction between males na foreigner at saka males na Pinoy? Common sense na lang. Siyempre, walang substantial distinction. Diba? The keyword is substantial. Wala pong substantial distinction, making it invalid or unreasonable classification. So, unconstitutional siya, mga kapatid. Ganon ang bira. Okay? With that being said, let's go to the requisites. No? So, 4, substantial distinction which makes for real differences. The classification must be germane to the purpose of the law. The classification must not kulang ng isang word, not be limited to existing conditions, and the classification must apply equally to all members of the same class. So alam naman natin, ang pinaka-important na requisite dito is the first one. Diyan talaga nagkakatalo. Para lang to sa labor, di ba may apat dyan, yung fourfold test. Yung power to discipline, power to hire, ano pa yung power to pay wages, at saka power to control. Yun naman power to control lang talaga nagkakatalo, di ba? Doon lang naman lagi ang ginagamit sa control test. Same thing po dito sa reasonable classification. Ang pinaka-important talaga dyan yung substantial distinction. Always, tatak nyo sa isip nyo, yun ang kailangan nyo maalala. Kasi dyan po gagana yung analysis. Kaya sinasabi ko sa inyo, kung ito is analysis. What is substantial distinction? It depends upon you, how you argue. Okay? Police power, di ba? What is reasonably necessary? What is unduly oppressive? Tingnan nyo yung facts. Analyze the facts. Ganon. Okay? So you get the point, no? What is oppressive? What is unreasonable? Di ba? What is confiscatory? Sa substantive due process, it's up to you. Di ba? Analysis, no? That's where we come in sa analysis, no? Okay, so meron po ulit no, may mga nabasa akong kaso, yung levels of scrutiny to determine if distinction was reasonable. Basically, para malaman mo daw kung mayroong substantial distinction or wala. Ako nung nagbar ako, well, I forgot, hindi ako sure kung tinanong ako ng equal protection clause, I forgot na. Pero kung tatanungin ako sa bar ng equal protection clause at kailangan kong i-apply yung four requisites of reasonable classification, assuming that I have to apply this, no? Para lang po sa akin, masyado nang malalim pag mag-i-strict scrutiny test pa ako eh. Kasi ito pa yung ginagamit ng ibang Supreme Court cases to justify bakit may substantial distinction between Group A and Group B. May legitimate government interest, may compelling state interest, kaya natin kailangan pag-ibahin yung Grupo A at saka Grupo B. Ganong kalalim. So basically, tatlong provisions na gagamitin nyo. Siyempre, ilalagay nyo Section 1. Further, di ba, the following are the requisites for reasonable classification. That's the second, legal, yung basically legal doctrine, legal principle na ilalagay nyo. Tapos may pangatlo pa kayo. In order to determine if the distinction was reasonable, we must apply the strict scrutiny test. Sabihin natin kasi yun naman ang usual na ginagamit. Oh. Ilalagay mo na naman ngayon kung ano requisites ng strict scrutiny, di ba? Kailangan may compelling state interest, it must be least intrusive means, di ba yung the means employed must be the least intrusive least intrusive means, tapos it must be narrowly tailored. O di ba, may mga ganyang dialogue pa yung strict scrutiny. Ang haba na ng sagot nyo. So, ang opinion ko lang po, no, ang gusto lang naman talaga makita ng examiner sa pag tinanong kayo ng classification, ang gusto talaga nilang makita yung four requisites. So, para lang sa akin, if common sense applies, no, bakit mayroong substantial distinction yung group A o group B o wala? Just use your common sense, kapatid. So, ilagay mo here, there was substantial distinction between men, women, and PWDs. Diba? Something like that. No? Or, ayan, so here, the law is not limited to present conditions only, but also applies to future generations. Something like that. Ganun ang mga banat, kapatid. Okay, so, iniisip ko kasi practicalities para maging practical din. Oh. Of course, kung gagawa ka ng pleading mo, di ba? If you want to raise constitutional issue sa court, baka kailangan maging exhaustive ka. Kailangan mong i-apply pa yung mga strict scrutiny test, di ba? To justify that there is substantial distinction or that there is none. Okay? Kaya for the purposes of the bar, di ba? And ilang percent ang bar exam question, 3 to 5%, you need to use your common sense. Di ba? Maybe, hindi nyo na kailangan na banat kayo na pati strict scrutiny, sasali nyo pa. I suggest, quote section 1 of the Bill of Rights, quote yung four requisites, kung may classification, you need to determine if reasonable yung classification, and then proceed to the application part. In this case, here, diba, there was no substantial distinction, so the blah, 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 making the law unconstitutional or making the law in violation of the Equal Protection Clause, something like that. Use your common sense. Yun lang ang suma total. Okay, no. With that being said, no, medyo mahaba din naging discussion ko sa Equal Protection Clause. let's go to the examples natin. No? So, ilan ba examples na nailagay natin dito? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 10. Diba? Ang dami ko nailagay dito. Anyway, simulan natin dito sa, well, magbabanggit lang ako ng ano. Babanggitin ko itong Serrano case, no? Kasi I like flavor cases. Hindi lang siya masyadong like ng mga bar takers kasi hindi masyadong well, alam masyadong traction yung labor law pag sinasabi ko yung i-discuss ko. Okay. So ayan, Vauci tayo ng Garcia versus Drilon 2013, no? Sabi po, RA 9262, Vauci, violation doon siya ng Equal Protection Clause kasi it favors women over men. Eh, ang mga lalaki doon, nagiging victims din naman ng violence yan or abuse sa household. Tama naman yun, di ba? Tama naman. Hindi naman laging babae ang na-abuse. Talagang lalaki na-abuse din. No? So anyway, is RA 9262 in violation of the Equal Protection Clause? The answer is no. Why? Kasi meron pong substantial distinction between men and women. Isa lang yung ilagay ko dito, no? Yes. Ang isa talagang ano dyan, isang reason bakit may substantial distinction is women are the more likely victims of domestic abuse. Di ba? Yun ang isa, no? Yun ang isang reason kung bakit mayroong substantial distinction between Group A being women and Group B being men. Diba? Ayan. The fact that women are more likely than men to become victims of violence and the widespread gender bias and prejudice against women all make real differences that justify classification under the law. Oh. Next tayo itong Imbong. Sige, I like this case a lot. Okay, ito. Kasi po, no, meron tayong tinatawag sa freedom of religious na consensus objector. So you can object to a government policy, to a government regulation if this government regulation, if you follow it, you would parang violate your religious practice or it would be inconsistent with your religious beliefs, religious practice. You can choose not to follow that government regulation. Ang tawag dyan, consensus objector. Ngayon, ito, government health workers are duty-bound to follow RH law despite being offensive to their religion, while private health workers are allowed to not follow RH law. No? So nakalagay po yan sa, dapat di nga RH law lang yan, RPRH law kasi Responsible Parenthood and Reproductive Health Law. With that being said, eto ba, is this unconstitutional? The answer is yes. Kasi wala pong substantial distinction between private health workers at saka public health workers. Pwede mong sabihin, common sense. Diba? Bakit walang pagkakaiba? They do the same job, bro. Diba? They do the same job. It's just that yung isa, gobyerno nagpapasweldo, yung isa, negosyante. Diba? Either way, they belong to the same group. Either way. Either. In both. Okay? They both belong to the same group, di ba? They both belong to the same group. There is no substantial difference between the two kinds of health workers, making this provision sa RPRH law unconstitutional. Okay? Kasi if you allow private health workers to not follow RH law because it is against their religion, the same way you should allow government health workers to not follow RH law if this is offensive to their religion. Both ways, di ba? Next tayo, maghahanap ako ng ibang examples dito na I like. No? Ito. Ito po, siguro, sa last 10 years na ba, mga tatlo, apat na best tinanong to. I want this na tumatak sa isip nyo. Okay. Pag po kasi nag-file, ayan na, malapit na, grabe naman sa malapit na malapit. Malapit na po ang election 2025, di ba? Midterm elections. So ano yan? Hindi lang po yung mga elective officials ang magpa-file ng COC. Pati mga appointive officials, sabihin natin, department secretary, um, regional director, mga ganyan, no? Magpa-file din sila, commissioner, no? Magpa-file din po sila ng COC. So ngayon ito ang tanong. Kapag sabihin natin, incumbent na konsihal ka, pag nag-file ka ng COC, bakit konsihal ka pa din? On the other hand, si regional director, pag nag-file ng COC, ipso facto, automatic resign na siya sa posisyon niya as a regional director kung anong department man siya o anong bureau man siya. Bakit ganun? Is this in violation of the Equal Protection Clause? Ang sabi po ng law, ang sabi ng Supreme Court, no. This does not violate the Equal Protection Clause because there is substantial distinction between elective officials and appointive officials like regional directors. Ano ang pagkakaiba nila? The nature of their function. Elective officials are uh, they engage in partisan political activity. Meanwhile, di ba pag civil service employee ka, dapat general rule. At kasi di nga general rule. Kapag partisan, pag civil service employee ka, appointed official in this case, di ba di ka nga pwede mag-engage sa partisan political activity. Okay? So with that being said, kaya po iba ang treatment no ng Omnibus Election Code no ng jurisprudence natin din sa appointive officials at saka sa elective officials. Ang elective officials, mag-file ng COC, incumbent official pa din. Meanwhile, ang appointive official, pag nag-file ka ng COC, resign ka agad. Kasi iba nga ang functions nyo. Appointive officials, di ba? The general rule, they are not, they do not engage in election campaigning. Di ba? In campaigning. Hindi, no? On the other hand, elective officials do. That's why, iba ang treatment natin sa kanila. So, paano natin gagawin ng substantial distinction? Actually, common sense din eh. Analyzing din the nature of their functions. How they work. Diba? What's their job? Diba? Ano ba ang job ng konsehal kumpara sa regional director? You get the point. Okay. Ito yung last na gusto kong maging example for this one before we move to section 2 sa unreasonable searches and seizures, no? Yung po kasing Migrant Workers Act, no, meron niyang sabihin natin, mag-reimburse tayo ng pera sa illegally dismissed employee na OFW. No? Yung OFW, no, na abuso, hindi binayaran yung sweldo, di ba? Alam naman natin yan sa labor law, sino pwedeng habulin, di ba? Solidary ang liability ng recruitment agency, nung money agency, at saka nung principal. Di ba? Bakit po ganyan? No? Brief discussion na lang. Kasi the OFW, no, once he returns to the Philippines, he has no means to enforce the judgment against the principal. Di ba? That's why the recruitment agency becomes solidarily liable because the recruitment agency has the means to pursue the principal. Sila magkausap eh. You get the point. That's why, yan po parang naging wisdom, no? Parang yung naging reasoning. Bakit ginawang solidarily liable yung manning agency at saka yung principal. Okay, so ayos na tayo dyan. Wala problema dyan. Ang problem po kasi, yung ibibigay na basically yung unpaid wages ng OFW. May nakalagay po dyan, yung ibibigay is unexpired portion of his employment contract or for 3 months for every year of unexpired term, whichever is less. So ano po nangyari dito? Kapag naka-isang taong ka sa trabaho, sabihin natin isang taong kang naging chef sa ibang bansa, OFW ka, di ba? Lugi ka. Sabihin natin 11 months ka lang na chef, kontrata mo 11 months lang. Sabihin natin 5 buwan ka lang nakapagtrabaho, bigla ka pinaalis. May 6 months ka ngayon. Kasi yun yung unexpired portion of your employment contract. Yun yung pwede mong kunin sa manning agency at saka sa solidary liability at saka sa principal. On the other hand, di ba? Kapag naka-isang taong ka sa trabaho, 3 months lang ang pwede mong kunin kasi 3 months for every year of unexpired term. Parang ganun, di ba? So there is no substantial distinction between OFWs with less than 1 year unexpired term and OFWs with more than 1 year unexpired term. I'm sorry, hindi pala naka-isang taon. Pag mahaba ang kontrata mo, okay, ayusin natin kapag 11 months lang ang kontrata mo, panalo ka. Kasi makukuha mo buo. Pero pag more than 1 year yung kontrata mo, lugi. Kasi magiging 3 taon na lang, 3 buwan na lang yung bilang mo doon sa next month, na next year. 2 years ang contract mo. Di ba? Tapos 1 year pa yung unexpired term mo, you're telling me 3 buwan lang ang pwede ko makuha dyan. Pero kung ito na short lang yung contract, makukuha niya lahat nung unexpired portion ng contract niya. Di ba? Ang tanong, may pagkakaiba ba yung long-term contract na OFW at saka yung short-term contract ng OFW? There's none. There is no reason why those with longer unexpired term shall have a lesser entitlement than those with shorter unexpired term. So basically, it violates the Equal Protection Clause because it violations. Sorry, kung may makikita man kayo sa reviewers ko no, na may mga maling ganyan na subject verb agreement, I didn't mean it, no? Ala, talagang nagmamadali lang sa pagta-type, syempre, no? Kasi we have to cover a lot of things. Namamali tayo, I'm sorry, no? I mean well, no? Hindi ako yan, no? Typographical error lang yan, pagpasensya nyo na. Pero you get my point. You get my point. I hope I was able to drive my points across sa inyo kahit na namamali yung grammar natin minsan. Okay. Kaya kung gusto banggitin to, kasi nangyari po sa kaso na to, di ba, unconstitutional na, sabi sa kaso na Serrano versus Galan. Later on, nagkaroon po ng amendment doon sa Migrant Workers Act. Doon po sa amendatory law, inilagay na naman yung phrase na yan, yung unexpired portion of his unemployment contract, of his employment contract, or for 3 months for every year of unexpired term, whichever is less. Basically, ito yung law dati sa RA 8042, yun yung Migrant Workers Act. Sabi ng Constitution, sabi ng Supreme Court, o yung phrase na to unconstitutional. Tapos later, kung nagkaroon ng amendatory law, ibinalik na naman yung phrase na yun. Tanong, nagkaroon ba na effectivity yung phrase na yun o wala? So sabihin natin, no, gawa natin, pahirapan natin yung senaryo. 'Di ba? Sabihin natin yung declaration ng Supreme Court 2009. Nagkaroon ng amendatory law 2010. Some manning agencies, some principals relied on the text of the amended law. So nakita na naman nila yung phrase na yon na unconstitutional na before. Tanong, can they rely on that phrase na now na inilagay sa ulit ng Congress? Does this have effect? Does this have binding force? Pwede bang ito ang gawing option ng pagbabayad ng mga manning agency at saka principals? Yung 3 months for every year of unexpired term, whichever is less na. Pwede ba niyang gamitin ulit yun? The answer is no. Ito po yan. Samir versus Cabilis. No. Once the court declares a law, a provision of the law, unconstitutional, it cannot be reenacted unless there is change of relation between the parties. Anyway, kahit nga tanggalin nyo na for the purposes of the bar, no? Sabihin nyo lang, once the court declares a provision of the law unconstitutional, this cannot be reenacted. When a law or a provision of law is null, because it is inconsistent with the Constitution, the nullity cannot be cured by reincorporation or reenactment. Diba? A law or provision of law that was already declared unconstitutional remains as unconstitutional. It will not have any binding effect. It has no force and effect. Tandaan niyo. Kaya kung gusto talagang banggitin, last example ko tong Serrano case na to at saka tong Samir kasi natanong din po sa bar yan. Yung reenactment na yan. Law, unconstitutional, re-enact. May binding force ba? May effect ba? Natanong sa bar yan, no? Nasagot ko na rin yan sa bar Q&A natin sa political law. I hope you check that out. I hope you check that out kasi pinag-effortan po talaga natin yan. Marami din kayong mapupulot, no? Yung mga hindi ko man na-cover dito, isama nyo yung mga sagot ko doon na alak method doon sa bar Q&A. Makita nyo magiging prepared na kayo for political law. Kasi ang dami nyo ng principles na nakuha. Kung di mo natin na-discuss ngayon, nasa chairs cases pa, ginawan din natin ng chairs cases, di ba? Kung wala man sa discussion ko ngayon, nasa chairs cases, kung wala man doon, nakita nyo pa doon sa bar Q&A. Di ba? Kaya sinasabi sa akin ng iba, attorney, yung reviewer, hindi pa siya, may mga na-miss out, no? I get it, no? Pero sa akin nga po kasi, ang point ko rito sa reviewer natin, ang point ko rito sa discussion natin is, I don't want you to be, ayoko malunod kayo sa info. So ako talaga, I just stick to the likely topics that will be asked sa bar. I want to make it as short, as concise as possible at the same time. I'm discussing. Diba? I'm not just reading what is in my document, in my material. I'm also explaining why this happens. Diba? Bakit ganito ang naging ruling, ano reason ng law, ano spirit, diba? How do we analyze? Ipinapasok ko din yon, no? Kaya mahaba yung discussion natin. Pero yung pinaka-material po, I don't want to make it super long kasi nga marami rin naman akong materials na binigay sa inyo. May chairs cases, tapos may bar Q&A pa. Yun talaga gusto kong mabasa nyo. Yung bar Q&A. You need to read that kasi tandaan nyo, ang bar, uh, ulitin ko, marami pong topics na nauulit. Siyempre, iba yung angulo ng pagtatanong sa inyo. Pero kung nakita nyo na before, no, medyo sanay na kayo makakita ng ganong problema. Iba man yung problema ngayon, kaya nyong i-address. Diba? Basically, parang doktor lang, no? Kung sanay ka nang makadiagnose, sabihin natin, ng diabetes, iba man lagi yung pasyente mo, syempre, iba lagi ang kondisyon ng each pasyente, hindi naman pare-pareho tao, di ba? Pero sanay ka na eh. So pag nakakita ka ng ganyan itsura, similar case na parang diabetes, o ayan, mas ma-address mo. Hindi ka na naiilang. So ngayon, ano magiging suma total niyan? Automatic, makaka-full points ka. Diba? So, yun lang naman ang gusto ko i-point out. No? Ginawa ko na lang ng parang metaphor, similarity sa medicine. Diba? If sanay kang makadiagnose ng ganyan problem, iba man yung itsura ng problem ngayon, alam mo kung paano i-resolbahin. Ano ang medicine dyan? Ano ang gamot? Diba? Ano ang solusyon? Ano ang redress? Ano ang remedy? That's why don't just read, no? You have my reviewer, you have the other lecturers, reviewers. You also have other reviewers, other books na nabili nyo, nakuha nyo from other places. Tandaan nyo, pag puro reviewer ang binabasa nyo, guys, di ba? Ilang beses ko sinasabi to, you do not complete the puzzle. Di ba? Hindi nyo na-complete yung puzzle ng puzzle of obligations that you have to fulfill in your preparation for the bar. 'Di ba? One piece of the puzzle lang 'yan. Pagbasa ng mga info. Ay, okay. Okay, maganda 'tong sinabi na to. Ay, okay, maganda 'tong chairs case na to. That's just one piece of the puzzle. You need the whole piece of, you need the whole puzzle para makapasa kayo ng bar. So, ulitin ko, no, laging nagkakaroon ng neglect, nagkakaroon ng fault, nagkakaroon ng hindi pagtutuon ng pansin sa bar Q&A. Nung law school din, marami sa ating ganyan. Puro books, mga kapatid, puro mem aid, puro reviewer. You have to answer. You have to answer or you have to look at answers. No, either way they will help you a lot. No, kasi if 'di ba parang basically para siyang ano ni. Yun na yung parang hack nyo eh. Kung hacks na lang tayo. Hack para pumasa sa bar. Wag puro reviewer ang basahin mo o puro book. You have to view things from a different lens. Read questions. Hack mo na siya. Paano pag ganyan talaga yung tanong? Paano pag naulit? Nagtanong na naman ng BP 129, iniba lang 2 million na ngayon. Dati kasi 400K lang yung claims. Binago mo lang yung number. Yun na rin yung sagot. Diba? Anyway, you get the point. You get the point. Sige, for the next video, mag-ano tayo, section 2 na. No? Probably, the hardest topic sa Bill of Rights, section 2. No? Yung unreasonable searches and seizures na yun. Kung may ranking ako ng mahirap na mga topics, no? Number 1 sa akin, section 2. Ang number 2 na mahirap dyan, yung freedom of speech, tapos freedom of religion, and then section 1. Yan ang mga apat na yan, every year natatanong. Hindi pwedeng hindi, guys. Section 1, section 2, section 4, and 5. Walang mintis yan. Nung bar ko, natanong yung freedom of speech at saka ano eh. Alala ko yung freedom of speech na natanong sa akin doon, criticism against sitting justices of the Supreme Court. Yun yung freedom of speech. Yung tanong naman sa akin sa religion, na may halong equal protection, yung bawal, nag-impose ng regulation na bawal ang mga parang nagpa-practice ng Islam sa halls of justice. Yung mga nagdadasal, yun yung parang tanong sa bar ko nun eh. Bawal yung pagdadasal ng Islam sa halls of justice, pero nag-impose yung Supreme Court resolution na pinapayagan na mag-conduct ng masses ng Catholic sa mga halls of justices. Yun yung isang tanong sa akin. I think equal protection yun, di ba? Pero meron ding hinga ng religious expression, di ba? May hinga din ng freedom of religion, di ba? So natakil agad, Section 1, 4, and 5. Yun lang naman ang point ko. Every year yan. Yung barko nga, ganun eh. Di ba? So, ganun lang siya every year. Pwede sa taon nyo, assembly naman ang tatanungin. O pwede naman, tatanungin kayo. Ano naman, fair commentary. Diba? Right to privacy, fair commentary doctrine. Comment about a public person regarding his public life. Mga ganyan dialogue. Was his right to privacy violated? O, di ba? Sige. Next video tayo.